April 22nd, 2007. A hasty checkpoint 22 miles outside Ramadi, Anbar province. Captain Daniel Reyes stepped down from an up-armored Humvee with an M9 Beretta on his hip, 9 by 19 millimeter, 15 rounds. A sidearm insurgents love to mock as the American pop gun. The cell leader blocking the road saw it and laughed. "What will you do with that toy, Captain? Scare us into leaving?" 8 gunmen drifted out from broken walls and palm shadows, forming a loose half-circle around the two-vehicle element. They wanted the high-value detainee in the back seat. Reyes had seconds to decide. Rifle platoon leaders carried M4s. Gunners had M240s and a Ma Deuce up top. Reyes, former Chicago cop who'd walked beats where one wrong move meant a widow and a funeral, carried something else: precision, discipline, and a weapon built for one purpose: hitting exactly what you aimed at when you couldn't afford to miss. These fighters were about to learn why 15 controlled rounds could be more terrifying than 30 rounds of spray-and-pray chaos. What happened next would rewrite everything they thought they knew about American sidearms. Before sunrise, the battalion staging lot east of Ramadi breathed its usual iron and dust dawn. HESCO barriers sweated dew. T-walls turned pink under a thin sky. Captain Reyes stood beside the motor pool line, checking his M9 for the third time. Beretta 92 FS, serial number BZ418725. 9 by 19 millimeter, 15 rounds of 124 grain ball. The slide was polished smooth from 2 years of holster rub and nervous thumbs. Around him, lieutenants slammed magazines into M4s and traded the same old joke. "Sir, what are you doing with that?" Lieutenant Morrison called, grinning at the pistol. "Gonna annoy them to death?" Reyes didn't bite. He pressed check, watched brass gleam, rode the slide home, thumbed the decocker. 15 rounds, 15 chances to do it right. He'd been a Chicago cop for 4 years before the uniform. Walked beats where backup was 10 minutes away, and one bad call ended as a folded flag. A .45 hit hard. A 9mm hit precisely. Today needed precision. S2 had flagged Brigadier General Saeed al-Hamdi, ex-artillery commander, now a detainee, for immediate movement to division. He might know where the foreign fighters filtered in, which wadi hid the caches, which safehouse doors led to the bomb makers. Reyes drew the run. 87 miles of partial control along Route Michigan, then south toward Habanilla and east. The XO clapped him on the shoulder with that smile senior officers wear when they're about to say something they think is clever. "Try not to lose this one, Dan. Maybe borrow a real gun." Sergeant Malik Khan sat in the driver's seat, fingertips drumming the wheel, a nervous rhythm he never noticed he was playing. Malik was 23, wire-tight with anger, the kind who gripped things too hard and whose jaw muscles jumped when he had to translate ugly words. His father's Pashto and his mother's Iraqi Arabic made him a gift to every patrol and a misery as a passenger, because he understood every mutter prisoners thought was private. "You really think we're rolling through with just us?" he asked. "We've made it through worse," Reyes said. "Sure," Malik said, "but worse usually involved a lot more gun." Al-Hamdi came out of the detainee tent flanked by MPs, wrists cuffed, chin high. 50s, posture like rebar, the kind of officer who probably inspected his watchband before surrendering. The rank had been stripped off his uniform, but you could still see the ghost lines where it had lived. He looked at Reyes with the polite contempt of a chess player sizing up a checkers board. "Captain," he said in careful English, "you will move me." That's right, General. 87 miles, 4 hours if the roads behave, and if they do not." Then we improvise. Reyes jerked his head at the Humvee. Sergeant Khan drives. You sit him back. Try nothing stupid, and we all get to dinner. I have nowhere to run, Al-Hamdi said. My home is likely dust. My city. He stopped. Something flickered behind his eyes and died. Nowhere to run. They loaded him in. The convoy rolled out. 2 trucks, 1 gun up, 1 rear. Engines growled. Radios hissed. The morning hung at 42 degrees and overcast. The kind of weather that made the world feel about 2 miles wide. The first 30 passed like a bad dream. Burned-out shells of taxis, cratered pavement, kids waving at dust clouds, shop fronts welded shut. The detainee watched it all like a man reading his own autopsy. At one point, he asked about Chicago. He'd visited in the 80s for some defense expo, he said. Reyes told him about the lakefront and the way the city smelled like steel and ambition when the wind was right. For 5 minutes, they almost had a conversation. Then they hit the broken culvert and everything changed. The roadblock showed itself in the shimmer ahead, body shapes where no one should be, a barrier of tires and doors welded crooked and rolled into place. The uniforms weren't Iraqi army or police. Mismatched tracksuits, soccer jerseys under dusty chest rigs. 8, maybe 10. Deserters from somebody's failed brigade, or just a cell lucky enough to collect all their friends into the same bad idea. Malik braked hard enough to nudge Reyes into the radio mount. Contact front. Reyes ordered the detainee down and stepped out into gravel, M9 visible, nothing showy. The man in charge, older than the others by a few lies, had a grin too wide for his face. Loud men mistake volume for authority. He started in Arabic, and Malik translated by instinct. The Americans sent children with toys, the leader called. He saw Al-Hamdi through the slat of the armored glass, and the grin broke into fanatic light. General, we have come to free you. They began to close. Reyes had about 10 seconds to choose the ending. He raised the M9, not aiming yet, just letting the silhouette speak, and said in careful Arabic he'd practiced on the range and on rooftops between patrols. This toy holds 15 rounds. I was a Chicago cop for 4 years. I do not miss inside 7 meters. First round is for the first man who touches this truck. Who wants to be second? The leader didn't back off. If anything, Reyes's threat amused him the way a wolf is amused by a dog flashing its teeth. He barked orders. Rifles came up at low ready. 8 men, 15 rounds. The math worked for once, and everyone there knew it. Reyes kept his voice calm as Sunday morning. I do not want to shoot anyone today. But if you force it, some of you won't go home. The war is changing. Seems like a stupid day to die. Behind him, Specialist Alvarez racked the M240 up top. The bolt sounded like a judge's gavel. Still, the half-circle kept inching. Then Reyes did something that made Malik's breath catch. He lowered the pistol slightly, not holstering it, just relaxing the aim, and looked the leader in the eye. What's your name? It hit like a stone in still water. The man blinked. What? Your name? I'm Captain Reyes. If you kill me, least you can do is say who made the choice. The man's face twisted with the confusion you see when a script goes off the rails. Rashid, he said at last. Rashid, Reyes nodded. This thing is over. You know it. Your men know it. Go home. See if your family is still there. Malik picked up the thread in Arabic, adding a little theater, the translator's privilege. The captain has never shot a prisoner, he said, but he has shot men who forced his hand. 7 shots, 7 hits, 7 funerals. He doesn't miss. That part was true in all the ways that mattered. Reyes had stopped riot-ugly crowds in Bakba and Fallujah without ever hitting the wrong target. Precision that dropped ringleaders and froze the rest. Stories like that grow antlers as they spread through companies. Today, Malik made sure the antlers showed. You could see it working in faces. Two of the younger ones traded looks you only see on boys who've just found out bravado is a currency with a bad exchange rate. But Rashid's pride was bleeding out on the gravel, and men do stupid things to stop that kind of bleed. His hand twitched toward a Tokarev on his hip. Reyes cocked the hammer. The front sight settled on center mass, and then, by a hair, shifted to the man's shoulder. "Don't," Reyes said, quiet enough that only the men already committed could hear. "I gave you a way out." "Don't make me take it back." They held there for a long minute that felt like a small war. Sweat crawled down Reyes's back despite the cool morning. His trigger finger ached, pressure just below the brake. If Rashid drew, Reyes would fire, and then everything would turn to glass and shrapnel in half a second, while the rest decided between loyalty and survival. Rashid was reading faces too. These weren't zealots. They were tired men in bad uniforms playing war until someone called the bluff. Reyes called it with 15 rounds of calm. Rashid spat, painted the dirt with something ugly in Arabic, and stepped away from his pistol. He flicked his hand. The semicircle melted into palms and alleyways the way jackals slide back into tall grass. 30 seconds later, the road was only tracks and adrenaline. Reyes rode the hammer down, holstered. His hands didn't start shaking until 5 miles on, after Malik spoke. "You think they'll come back?" "No," Reyes said. "They wanted permission to quit. We handed it to them." Al-Hamdi was quiet for the next 10 miles, watching a country he'd sworn to defend like a man cataloging the inventory of a house fire. Walls standing, everything inside turned to shadow and stink. Finally he spoke. "Why did you not shoot?" "Because I didn't have to." "That is not an answer," he said softly. "You had justification. Any court would absolve you." "Maybe," Reyes said, bracing as the Humvee bounced a crater. "But I'd still have to write letters to mothers." Already wrote one last November. The air changed in the cabin, the way it always did right before pain showed itself. "Your brother?" the general asked. "Yeah, Tommy, infantry. Sniper took him in the Korengal while he was hauling a wounded sergeant downhill. He was 23. Bronze Star Reyes kept his voice level, like he was filing a report, not describing the hole a telegram had hammered in his chest. "Mom keeps it on the mantle." Al-Hamdi looked at his cuffed hands for a long time. "My son," he said. 03, an artilleryman near Basra. They said it was quick." He swallowed. "I do not know if that was kindness or truth." The convoy reached a traffic circle where the world erupted again. Deep, throaty booms rolled over the palms, the kind that make your ribs buzz. Not their 105s, somebody else's 122s. Smoke rose from beyond a line of houses, black and oily and wrong. An infantry runner flagged them down before the next checkpoint, face streaked with dust and worry. "Road's cut," he panted. "A cell overran a clinic and took wounded hostages. Division's sealing the breach, but it'll be ours. You need to backtrack to the last intersection. Swing west to the secondary." Reyes unfolded the map across his knee, traced options with a gloved finger. Backtrack 40 miles and add 3 hours, or his finger paused on a thin gray line that snaked through a stand of palms and into the kind of terrain staff officers circle and write, "Avoid." Take the farm track, unmapped, probably mined, definitely uncleared, but shorter and forward. "What do you think?" he asked Malik. "I think we wait for armor," Malik said, eyes on the trees like he could see through them by sheer hate. "Let the big trucks punch through. Could be 6 hours. Could be 100 stupid ways to die on that track." Reyes looked back at the detainee. The general watched him with the same calculating eyes he'd probably used on artillery tables and casualty estimates for 20 years. "What would you do, General?" "I would measure the value of your prisoner against the risk of the terrain," Alhamdi said. "But you are not asking for strategy. You are asking if I am worth the gamble. Are you?" He held Reyes's gaze. "I know where 3 facilitators sleep. I know which officers will testify. I know the names of men who hide fuses in flour sacks. I am worth the gamble, if you believe I will honor my word." Reyes made the call. "We go through." "Stay sharp." Malik muttered something in Arabic that was probably not complimentary and turned the wheel. The track took them under palms into a darker world, light filtered to cathedral dim. The Humvee crawled in first gear, every rut a sermon on physics. You learn to hear dirt out there, how loose gravel talks and tamped soil lies. Today the ground said maybe. They made it 3 miles before the world went sideways. Shapes stepped from shade wearing American uniforms wrong. Too clean. Sleeves perfect when nothing else was. That weird mock discipline you only see in guys wearing costumes and hope. One of them saw the back seat, saw Alhamdi, and his face jerked from fear to fury, the kind of pivot only grief can power. "Traitor!" he screamed. The rifle came up. Reyes shouted in Arabic, "He's a prisoner!" The gun cracked. The round took a wiper arm and spiderwebbed the corner of the glass. Malik yanked the wheel. The Humvee slid, climbed a root, and dropped into a ditch at 20 miles per hour. Reyes hit the dash, rolled out his door, and came up on a shoulder with the M9 in his hand, because muscle memory is what remains when dignity gets thrown out the window. 3 gunmen were dragging the detainee out the other side, shouting about collaborators and justice, voices high and cracked with hunger and fear. One of them couldn't have been more than 19, elbows and knees behind a borrowed plate carrier. He pulled a battered pistol from his belt and jammed it against the general's temple. "This is what happens to traitors," he screamed. Reyes had maybe 2 seconds to choose a memory he'd carry forever. The front sight lifted, found the boy's right shoulder. Not center mass, not the head. End it without another mother getting a knock at midnight. 23 feet. 17 degrees up from the ditch. Double action pressure like pulling a brick through wet sand. The pistol cracked. A sharp report that sliced the shade. The 9mm took the shoulder, spun him, the gun skittering into dead leaves. Blood came hot, bright, then steadier. Ugly, but survivable. The other 2 froze. Reyes rolled behind a palm stump. "Drop the weapons!" he barked in Arabic. Up top, Alvarez had shaken the stars from his eyes and was swinging the M240 onto the tree line. Malik was already out, M4 up, stance wide. In the chaos, Alhamdi kicked backward with surprising precision, took one attacker's knee out, and folded him like bad scaffolding. The last gun dropped with a clatter. Hands up. The fight drained out of them the way fight always drains. One man at a time, then all at once. The boy was crying now. That thin, keening sound young men make when they finally understand that bodies break and aren't guaranteed to heal right. Reyes moved in, muzzle down, but present. The wound was a clean-through. Ugly nerve damage, likely, but no arterial spray. Painful as hell. Not fatal if someone competent cared. "Hold still," Reyes said in Arabic, fishing the IFAC open. You already hurt me, the boy gasped. I'm trying to keep you alive. Sulfa, gauze, pressure, a morphine auto-injector into the thigh. Breathing slowed. Eyes stayed wet. Diala, the boy whispered. My family. No word since February. The word February stretched in the air like wire. Fire, market, smoke. I just want to go home. Reyes thought about Tommy, about Alhamdi's son, about Allison's and Mariah's and Fatima's, and every mother who set a table for a ghost. He thought about the letter he'd torn up last week, the one where he'd told his mother he didn't know if he recognized himself anymore. He taped the bandage down and squeezed the boy's uninjured shoulder. You'll live, he said. When this calms down, go find them. Malik coaxed the Humvee back from the ditch with a cough and a groan. Frame bent, but the engine still had a stubborn soul. They loaded the detainee, left the 3 men with the wounded kid and enough dressing to make a collection point. The boy watched them go with the wide, stunned eyes of someone who'd just been pushed back onto a timeline that included tomorrow. They hit division 4 hours late, painted in dust, mud, and the kind of fatigue that sits in bones and refuses to be argued with. Reyes signed Alhamdi over to Intel in a beige building that used to be a school. He turned in his M9 for ballistics. Policy is policy, even when you're the captain. His battalion commander waited in the hallway with a face like a closed door. You endangered a high-value asset, the colonel said. You took an uncleared route without authorization. You discharged your weapon in an unauthorized engagement. You're on administrative leave pending inquiry. Dismissed. Reyes saluted and left. Malik was already outside, smoking his 3rd cigarette to a filter while staring at nothing. They sat on the hood while the day bled into the blue hour and tried to decide whether the ruins were beautiful or just lit in a forgiving way. You did the right thing, Malik said at last. Did I? Reyes asked. I could have put one center mass and ended every variable. But you didn't, Malik said. He flicked ash into the dust. That counts. That night, Reyes tried to write his mother. He got as far as I shot a man today for the first time since Fallujah and then tore the page. Some truths were too heavy to mail home. 2 mornings later, the colonel called him in. Reyes walked in ready for the paperwork that chews careers to the bone. He found Alhamdi there instead, showered, clean-shaven, sitting with an intelligence captain and a stack of translated notes. Brigadier General Alhamdi has been cooperative, the captain said. 3 facilitators in custody, locations of caches, names of officers willing to testify. He says you are the reason he's talking. The detainee stood, formal, precise, the way the spine remembers even when the world forgets. Through the interpreter, he said, In the grove, Captain Reyes spared the young one. I have seen officers, ours and yours, who would have shot for convenience or safety or paperwork. He did not. That is when I understood. Not all soldiers are the same. Some still fight for something real. The colonel cleared his throat like he'd swallowed sand. You're cleared of all charges, Captain. Your sidearm will be returned. Something like respect flared and vanished. Ballistics says, single round, 7 meters, non-lethal, textbook marksmanship under duress. Shooter exercised exemplary restraint. Another pause. Maybe there's something to that pop gun after all. The M9 came back that afternoon, cleaned and reloaded, its slide still worn smooth by worry and work. Reyes holstered it, stepped out into the Anbar sun, and listened to the bass hum, generators, helicopters, the distant metallic heartbeat of a land trying to remember its own rhythm. He didn't feel absolved. He didn't feel condemned. He felt like a man who'd used exactly one of 15 chances to do it right, and who understood that tomorrow might ask him to prove it again. Out beyond the T-walls, a boy in a borrowed vest would wake up sore and alive, look at a bandage, and feel a future press back into his palm. In an office with sand in its corners, a former general would sign his name to statements that pulled threads from a net. In a living room far away, a mother would dust a picture frame and not know why the air felt lighter. The war kept going. Convoys rolled. Radios hissed. Men laughed at the wrong jokes. But one road that should have turned red did not. Sometimes that's all you get. Sometimes that's enough.